What drives a man to face certain death rather than bend his will to an unjust ruler? Picture yourself on a vast open plain at the height of an Arabian summer. The sun beats down like a relentless hammer, and every breath tastes of hot dust. Your water skins lie empty, limp against the wooden stakes of your tent, and a fierce wind whips whirls of sand that sting your eyes and cling to your skin. Around you, the low rumble of an enemy army gathers, 10 times your number, each soldier armored and armed, their banners snapping in the breeze. Behind you waits your family, women and children huddled beneath the scant shade of a single acacia tree, their faces etched with fear and hope. You feel the earth tremble as thousands of hooves approach. The only choices before you: bow your head in submission or stand your ground and die. And yet, even as your heart pounds, you know there is no choice more righteous than to uphold the truth, regardless of the cost. This is the moment that defined Imam Hussein ibn Ali on the day of Ashura at Karbala. Born in the 5th year of the Hijra, 4 AH, 626 CE in Medina, Hussein's earliest memories were filled with the gentle cadence of Quranic recitation and the warmth of his grandfather's smile. His father, Ali ibn Abi Talib, was the Prophet Muhammad's beloved cousin and the first male youth to accept Islam. His mother, Fatima bint Muhammad, was the Prophet's own daughter and the epitome of piety and grace. As an infant, Hussein was held by the Prophet himself, who, according to a hadith narrated by Al-Tirmidhi, kissed Hussein on the forehead and prayed, "O Allah, I love him. Love him in return." Even as a small child, Hussein's generosity shone. He would share his own dates with the hungry, whispering that true wealth is a heart filled with compassion. At the Prophet's side during prayers, he learned mercy. By his father's example, he learned courage. These early lessons forged in him a character both tender and unbreakable. As Hussein grew into youth, his reputation for kindness and humility spread across Medina. He refused to ride while others walked, insisting children and the elderly mount his camel first. When a beggar approached him, Hussein once removed his own cloak to wrap around the man's shoulders. Leaving himself shivering in the night air, he memorized the Quran quickly, his recitation so clear that listeners wept, moved by both the words and the purity of his voice. He helped his sister Zainab care for their younger siblings, teaching them compassion, and he sat attentively as his father taught lessons in justice and governance beneath the shade of date palms. By the time he reached maturity, Hussein's name was spoken with admiration. "He lives simply so that others may live," people would say. His heart was open to all. His resolve was anchored in faith. Decades later, the calm of those early years gave way to a turbulent age. When Caliph Muawiyah died in 60 AH, 680 CE, he left behind a state that resembled a monarchy more than the consultative caliphate the Prophet had envisioned. His son, Yazid, claimed power by inheritance rather than by community consensus, shura, flouting the principle that leadership belonged to the most pious, not the most privileged. Under Yazid, the Umayyad court filled with wine and lavish banquets, while rumors of cruelty and injustice spread. Public morals eroded as governors extorted taxes and silenced dissent. In the Iraqi city of Kufa, once the stronghold of Hussein's father, respected tribal leaders penned hundreds of letters pleading, "O grandson of the Prophet, come and lead us back to the path of justice." Yet before the ink dried, Yazid's governor, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, arrested the signatories and crushed their hopes with threats and torture. As the call from Kufa grew louder, Hussein found himself at a crossroads. Envoys from Yazid's court arrived in Medina demanding his pledge of allegiance. Hussein asked only for 3 nights to pray and consult in the mosque where he had once sat at the Prophet's feet. He knelt in the stillness, tears streaking his face as he weighed loyalty to unjust power against the duty he owed to God and to the faithful who sought his leadership. His sister Zainab, standing beside him, urged patience. His son Ali al-Akbar, a young man of unwavering devotion, vowed to stand by his side. On the dawn of the third day, Hussein mounted his horse, echoing the actions of his grandfather when he left Mecca for Medina, and set his face northward toward Kufa, knowing full well that his path led to both honor and death. The journey began under skies pale as dawn's first light. Hussein rode with only 72 men, among them Muslim ibn Hajjaj, Habib ibn Muzahir, and his half-brother Abbas, known as the Moon of the Hashim. At each oasis and wadi, Hussein paused to water his camels and offer prayer of gratitude. Campfires dotted the desert nights as the small caravan shared bread dipped in goat's milk, reciting Quranic verses and exchanging stories of the Prophet's miracles. But when they reached the wells of Udhaib al-Hijjan, news arrived that Muslim ibn Aqil, Hussein's envoy to Kufa, had been captured, tortured, and executed. The ground seemed to tremble as word of betrayal rippled through the camp. Many who had promised support in Kufa now cowered in fear. Yet Hussein pressed on, reminding his men that faith demanded sacrifice, and that even in solitude, truth remained a fortress no army could storm. By the 2nd of Muharram, 61 AH, they arrived at Karbala, a plain carpeted in tawny grasses and flanked by low hills. To one side, the Euphrates flowed in a slender ribbon of life. To the other, the black tents and crimson banners of Umar ibn Saad's army, its ranks swelling into the distance. Hussein chose his campsite carefully. He pitched his single black tent facing the Kaaba, symbolizing his unwavering focus on God. Inside were women and children, including his sister Zainab, his nephew Qasim, and his infant son Ali al-Asghar. Outside, 72 loyal men stood guard. At first light on the third day, soldiers under Ibn Ziyad's command surrounded the camp and seized control of the river's banks. Trenches were dug, and the Euphrates diverted, cutting off Hussein's access to water. Behind the walls of steel and horses, the camp's occupants greeted the rising sun with parched lips and empty skins. As the heat of 9th Muharram climbed, Hussein asked his brother Abbas to fetch water. Abbas, famed for his strength and skill, mounted his horse and rode toward the river, carrying a standard of white as a sign of peace. Arrows whistled through the air. Abbas fell, the waters still beyond reach. He grasped the skin of water in his hand and with his dying breath murmured, "For the sake of Allah, I fulfilled my trust." Hussein and his companions ran to his side, but it was too late. Hussein cradled his brother's body, tears mingling with the blood on his face, whispering, "May Allah forgive you, my beloved." That night, under a sky of shimmering stars, he paced the tents to comfort Zainab and the children, reciting verses of hope. "O you who believe, seek help through patience and prayer." Quran 2153. The following dawn, 10th Muharram, the day of Ashura, broke in ominous silence. Hussein emerged from his tent, dust clinging to his beard and robes. He lifted his infant son, Ali al-Asghar, high before the enemy lines. His voice trembled but carried across the plain. "O people, this child is innocent. Grant him a drink of water." The response was swift and merciless. An arrow shot from the ranks found its mark in the child's throat. Hussein caught the limp body, pressing it to his lips as tears streaked his cheeks. "May Allah have mercy upon you, my son." Zainab's cry of grief rose above the desert winds, a lamentation destined to echo through history. As the sun climbed, the first charge crashed against Hussein's small band. One by one, his companions rode forth, each fall a testament to unwavering loyalty. Muslim ibn Hajjaj, striding forward with sword in hand, called, "For the sake of Allah," before he was cut down. Habib ibn Muzahir, his armor dented from countless battles, charged again and again until he too fell, proclaiming, I die to defend the grandson of the Prophet." The youth Qasim, barely 13, rode into the fray shouting, "Uncle, save me!" His horse stumbled and he lay dying in Hussein's arms. Each loss was a blow to the heart, each name a prayer on the wind. When the ranks thinned, Hussein took up the Prophet's sword, its blade inscribed with the word Allah, and stepped into the fray himself. He fought with the fury of a lion, his arms moving in a sacred dance of steel and faith. Every slash and parry was driven by the conviction that justice could not be compromised, but numbers overwhelmed virtue. His horse was felled, and Hussein, wounded by arrows and sword cuts, dismounted. He raised his hands in prayer, fingers stained with sand and blood, echoing the words of the Prophet, "O Lord, I ask not for life, but that you keep my honor intact." He fell at last, head tilted toward Mecca in a posture of submission and devotion. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. The sands of Karbala were strewn with the bodies of the brave. Hussein's head was severed and carried first to Ibn Ziyad in Kufa, then to Yazid's court in Damascus, where it was displayed on a spear. The Umayyad soldiers celebrated their victory. But in every village and city, word of Karbala spread like wildfire. In Kufa, the people who had once pledged to support Hussein now voiced their shame. In Damascus, some wept openly at the sight of the severed head of the Prophet's beloved grandson. Meanwhile, the women and children of Hussein's camp, Zainab, Kulthum, Ruqayya, and the young survivors, were bound and paraded through the streets of Kufa and Damascus. At every stop, Zainab stood tall, her voice unwavering. In Kufa's great square, surrounded by those who had betrayed her brother, she spoke, "By Allah, we did not leave except to obey the command of the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him." Her words cut through fear, reminding the people of their broken oaths. In Damascus, she faced Yazid himself, saying calmly, "What you have done to the family of your Prophet will not go unavenged." Her courage transformed captive wailing into righteous outrage, sparking the first embers of revolt against Umayyad tyranny. Imam Hussein's martyrdom carries profound spiritual meaning across the Muslim world. The Quran assures us, "Think not of those who are slain in the way of Allah as dead. Nay, they live, finding their sustenance in the presence of their Lord." 3:169. In choosing death over allegiance to oppression, Hussein embodied this divine promise. The Prophet said, as recorded by Al-Tirmidhi, "Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. Allah loves whoever loves Hussein." This bond transcends time and sect, drawing believers to Karbala in pilgrimage and remembrance. Each drop of Hussein's blood became a pearl of faith, teaching that true victory lies not in power but in steadfastness to principle. Over the centuries, the memory of Karbala has inspired rituals of mourning and solidarity. Every year on Ashura, millions gather in processions, their voices rising in Noha, elegiac poetry, and Latmiya, chest beating, recounting each companion's name as a prayer. 40 days later, on Arba'in, over 20 million pilgrims walked to Karbala, many from Najaf or Basra, often barefoot and carrying flags or replicas of Hussein's shrine. In Iran's deserts, in Lebanon's hills, in South Asia's streets, and in Western cities, the legacy of Karbala unites diverse communities in a shared act of remembrance and defiance against injustice. Imam Hussein's sacrifice has also echoed beyond religious devotion into the realm of universal human rights. Leo Tolstoy admired his moral courage. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of Karbala when urging nonviolent resistance. Modern activists invoke the name of Hussein in struggles against tyranny and oppression. The image of a lone man standing against an army resonates wherever people seek justice. In South America's revolutions, in Africa's liberation movements, and in protest camps around the globe. The courage of Karbala reminds us that truth, when carried with integrity, can move even the hardest of hearts. In this story of Imam Hussein, we find the ultimate lesson: that justice is worth any sacrifice, that compassion can conquer cruelty, and that a single life lived in unwavering faith can ignite the souls of millions. When you feel powerless before the weight of injustice, be it in politics, society, or your own life, remember the grandson of the Prophet who stood alone under the desert sun so that truth might endure. His journey invites us all. What will you risk to defend what is right, even if the cost is everything?